thank you very much for starting the recording. So my name is Victoria Ngumalo, the Executive Director of Girls in STEM Trust, and I'm going to be walking you through digital transformation. So I'm just going to start off by giving you a brief background about who I am and why we're going to be particularly speaking about digital transformation today. So I'm a digital transformation consultant, and I work a lot with a number of organizations, particularly educational institutions, to try to get them to digitally transform. And so basically this conversation that we're going to be having today is really, we're going to be looking at digital transformation, explaining what it is, and then also looking at the different strategies that we can apply digital transformation with. So I'm very pleased to see all of you here. Crystal, you're saying you cannot hear me. Can I just confirm with everybody else? Can you? Okay, sorted. Awesome. All right, awesome. So please feel free to interject me at any time. Should you need to have a discussion about what we're going to be talking about today, and I'll briefly walk you through my history in technology. So as I've mentioned, I'm the founder and executive director of Girls in STEM Trust. This is an education nonprofit that works with young women and girls in Zimbabwe as well as Africa to get them into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of the key things that we spend a lot of our time doing as Girls in STEM Trust is working with educators as well as businesses to get their employees to be digitally literate, and then also be part of the digital transformation process of those relevant companies. And so today's session is basically going to be about that. So walking you through digital transformation. So I just want us to quickly just have a brief highlight of what the objectives are going to be for our session. And we are basically looking at understanding and unpacking digital transformation. That's one of the key things that we are really looking at doing. So we need to understand what it is in order for us to unpack it. And then, of course, as the case is with everything else, there's always a myth surrounding digital transformation. And I really want us to debunk those and to unpack those, and for us to be able to discuss the real truth surrounding digital transformation, so that we fully understand when we now move to point number 3, which is the creation of a digital transformation strategy, how that ties in with our definition of digital transformation. And then finally, as always, we always want to look at the future of digital transformation. So because we're going through this session today, we want to make sure that we are 100% certain about what digital transformation is, and if it is even worth us studying it and looking at it as a 4th industrial revolution relevant skill that we need to have. So I will try to keep the session within the hour. Please, like I said, do feel free to interject or raise your hand or drop a message in the chat box so that we can have a conversation. So this is basically going to be a conversation. So before we start to speak about digital transformation, one of the key elements is for us to understand the element of the word digital and also the word digitization. So when we speak about digitization, we're basically speaking about a process of transforming analog processes to digital ones. And that's really, really, really important when we look at that. And I think the little image that I've put there really shows how we have transformed digitally over the years. So we first had the telephone that we used to dial up, and then we had a stopwatch, and then eventually we ended up having a cell phone, something that we are so used to using today without even thinking. And then we had a typewriter back in the day, and then we evolved. Now we are using laptops, and it feels so normal when we are using these things. We actually forget that there was a time where there was something back in the day, my apologies, something back in the day where we could not utilize these things. And it's really, really important that we understand the process of digitization before we actually move on. And when we're speaking about the PC revolution, which is basically our personal computer revolution, it replaced typewriters, Now desktop computers are there. Now we used to have fax machines. Now those fax machines have been turned into scanners. So now you have a scanner that is a 4-in-1, a printer that's a 4-in-1. It prints, it scans. And now then again, we are transforming our physical records into electronic records. So there's a lot that has evolved over the years. And this is where digital transformation comes in. But as crazy as this sounds, when we're now moving on to unpacking digital transformation, it really just refers to the adoption of digital technology in order to transform a business and its practices, and as well as the workplace, as well as the strategy. So it is so important for us to understand what digital transformation is. If you can just allow me a moment to switch this off. Right. So one of the key elements is we need to look at digital transformation, and we also need to look at why does it matter? How do organizations implement this change? And questions such as these have become very, very relevant in today's dynamic and fast-paced economy. And really, it's coming at a time where disruption and innovation is really the order of the day. It's going to sound a bit awkward what I'm about to ask you to do, but I'm basically going to ask you, for the purpose of this discussion, to move away from focusing too much on the word digital and actually hone in on the word transformation, just for the purpose of this definition. And I'll tell you why. So every transformation program is unique, whether digital or otherwise. And we want to focus on different aims, particularly when we speak about digital transformation, which includes everything from improving business performance to overhauling the customer experience. So we're coming from different backgrounds. Now, I didn't get an opportunity, both for you, Prince and Christelle, to actually find out which organizations you're coming from, because digital transformation really is important for all organizations, but there's a certain way that we transform digitally if it's an education institution. There's a certain way that we transform digitally if it is a finance institution, and we transform digitally again if it is a technology company. And all those ways are unique and they are specific to that specific company. And so this is why we're going to spend a bit of time, really, I want us to dwell on that definition of digital transformation to the point that we are really, really certain and understand what digital transformation is about and how it ties into all our relevant organizations and institutions that we may be coming from. So one of the most important things that I need us to highlight when we speak about digital transformation is the fact that it is not the same as software implementation. So 9 times out of 10, we think that if we get a new software, then we have digitally transformed. But actually, what the software implementation is, it's a key component of digital transformation, but they are not the same. And as we unravel this presentation at the moment, we are going to find out why I'm saying that. And anybody that has ever run a large scale organization will tell you that you can plug any technology into any environment and still not get any change in the way people work. In fact, you could end up disrupting things even more than you were at the beginning and not get the business outcomes that you are looking at. Because remember, when we digitally transform, the key element is that we're looking at creating sustainable business practice and obviously increasing our profit margins and increasing our bottom line. So this is the key that we need to remember. And when we look at why I am saying sometimes you may end up disrupting things, my thought process, and indulge me as I build the context on this, my thought process around this is because there's a lot of distraction that you get from all these new emerging technologies, your 4IR, your 4IR technologies, which is your AI, your machine learning, your cloud-based solutions and services. The thing is, those technologies, you have to figure out what they mean in your specific business. I am not, however, saying that you should not be implementing or buying software and coming up with solutions. That's not the point. Obviously, there are places where this pace of technology has become of incredible benefit to us, and we will continue to use that. So that's undisputed. But here is where the challenge is, and this is where I really want us to start to think about it as we unpack digital transformation. And indulge me again as I build the context on this one. If you are having a conversation about the digital or digitization because you want to talk about how that looks to the market, then truth be told, that's a marketing conversation. An important one, yes, but it's a marketing conversation. If you are thinking about, okay, how do I deliver my product and blow away my audience and blow away my client in a way they haven't experienced before, in a completely different way? How do I crunch down and improve my clients' experiences and drive a different business outcome because I've saved them time, I've saved them capacity? Well, that is business transformation. But more often than not, we start to think that that specific function of business transformation is the digital transformation that we are speaking about today. But it is not. The key lies here. The key lies in us understanding that simply digitizing existing services is not digital transformation. But the journey of the strategic plan of organizational change that will empower the employees with new methods and create highly responsive data strategies in an environment that adopts a culture of innovation is what we are calling digital transformation. So that is where the subtle difference is. And so to tie it up in a nice, neat bow, the leadership of that specific organization. So whether you are the chief data officer or you're the chief digital officer or whatever it is that they're calling you in your specific organization, it's basically your job as the leadership to have a digital mindset and create that high performing, innovative organization. So I hope we fully understood what digital transformation is and why it's particularly important. And so now we're going to move over into myth number one. So remember, I spoke about debunking the digital transformation myths. And as is the case with anything new, a new technology or whatever it may be, there are always some myths, right, that are surrounding a specific concept. And digital transformation is no exception. So when we look at myth number one, when we say improving IT leads to digital transformation, already we've had a little bit of a discussion about this, where we said software implementation, plugging in a new software into the system is not digital transformation. And we'll explain that in a little bit. So if you change the IT architecture, and again, I repeat, not that I'm saying it shouldn't be done, changing IT architecture, moving with the times is important, but it is not the transformational, it does not become transformational if the operational processes remain the same. So I want you to think of your relevant businesses. If we are talking about your specific businesses, there's operational efficiency, and then there's also the transformational efficiency. Now, granted, for any business to run well, it must be operationally effective. No doubt about it. We do not take that away. But if that change in the operations is not apparent, it does not happen, then it is not transformational. True digital transformation is about upgrading your strategic thinking, bearing in mind that there is an innovation, that culture of innovation that we spoke about, which also is driven by strategy, which the leadership has put into place. That is what we call transformational, because there's now strategy. And as time goes, I'll actually explain to you what strategy is and why it's so important. But we have to understand that innovation, on the flip side, has a risk. The moment you start to feel uncomfortable about some of the decisions that you have to take in order to come up with new products, new branding, new services, and these are all driven by technology, then we can start to say to ourselves, yes, this is beginning to feel transformational, because innovation is basically the cornerstone of digital transformation. And so I want us to bear in mind that that is one of the key things. And by the way, when you come up, you make a difficult business decision, in an uncomfortable business decision, and you create new business models, and the innovation is somewhat a little bit difficult, it tends to have some rewards because you've really had to turn around, transform the way your company is doing business, the way your organization is doing business. And this is true digital transformation. So we've agreed not improving your IT and saying, I've improved my IT, I've upgraded the software. That's not transformational. What's transformational is the strategy that you use to do that. That is when now we can start to speak about digital transformation in that light. And then myth number 2, digitizing operations is strategic and transformational. So when you distinguish between operational effectiveness, which we spoke about in the previous slide, which is a different type of element which is needed to run your business function well, there needs to be a difference between distinguishing what is operational effectiveness, which is good, we need it, and what the strategy is. So operational effectiveness is staying at best practice. So in other words, our turnaround time on the delivery of products is good. Our communication in terms of communicating to clients, stakeholders is great. All that is good. We sit down, we watch the trends as they are happening around the world, and we now start to ask ourselves, okay, because of COVID-19, do we migrate to the cloud or do we have our own servers in-house? All those are operational effectiveness. It's how you are delivering quality to your customers, to your clients. Now, when we speak about strategy, strategy is about understanding, right, where does this organization need to go? What barriers exist in getting the organization there? And then how do I mobilize the team that I have to get around those barriers? So strategy goes a layer deeper, and it actually results in the actual shift. In brackets, I've said the transformation that must occur. So again, we need to understand that if you make your operations digital, that is not transformational. What is transformational is seeing how all these elements, including your operational effectiveness, tie into the company's strategy. So it keeps coming back to the word strategy. Strategy is very, very important in digital transformation. And as we've highlighted, strategy needs to come from leadership. So your leadership has got to have a digital mindset, has got to understand where you are in the scheme of things, in the stream of time, and where your organization needs to go, how to mobilize the resources internally and to a certain degree externally. This could be your stakeholders and other partners. How do you put all that together and make it work in a symbiotic relationship where now you are transforming the way your organization does things without necessarily changing who you are? And so that is digital transformation. So I hope we've understood that strategy goes a layer deeper than operational effectiveness. So that's really, really, really important. And then myth number 3, any digital innovation, as long as we are digitally innovating, it's better than not doing anything, right? So we believe as long as there's something digitally happening, we're digitizing operations, it's better than nothing. But again, you need to look at it from this particular perspective, and this is what digital transformation expects from us. We need to distinguish the value between the notion, and I like to say this notion of shooting at the moon and then landing on the stars. So we say to ourselves, yes, I was aiming for the moon, but I've landed on the stars. It doesn't matter. It's okay. I've tried something. This is what we like to call divergent thinking. Okay. So you need to be focused, which is now convergent thinking, which is more focused. We need to be focused and direct about your, and I've put your in capitals, your specific business function, your business problems. They lead to better business results. And you need to figure out, if I am an education institution, how does this look for me? If I am a banking institution, how does digital transformation look for me? If I'm a production company, how does digital transformation look for me? So just because you've seen the internet abuzz with companies who are digitally transforming, and you say, yes, we need to move to the cloud, but you need to ask yourself, in my specific business, does moving to the cloud have any benefit to me, my team, the clients? If it doesn't, then that is just as good as what we are saying here. Just digitally innovating for the sake of digitally innovating. And really, that is actually detrimental to a lot of businesses that I have worked with in the past, because what then happens is you tend to assume that your business as a whole has the desire, has the passion, has the capability to execute any type of innovation, all and sundry, that comes and trends on the market. And that is really, really a fault on our part as leadership, because you've got to look at whether your company is interested remotely in being in that space. If it is not, then you leave it. If it is, do you have the capacity? By capacity, I'm speaking about, do you have the capacity in terms of the internal resources? So do you have the team that can run with this new innovation? Or is this going to tie your team down and make them exhausted and not want to be part of your organization anymore? Do you have the capacity in terms of finances? Can you really sustain this new innovation that you are saying the company should move into? So these are the things that we need to look at. So sometimes just digitally innovating is, for the sake of digitally innovating, is actually detrimental to your business. And so we are going to move on now and look at, we had moved to myth number 2. This is myth number 3. And now, really, I just want us to spend a bit of time just reflecting on the 3 myths that we've come up with. So we spoke about improving IT. Crystal, you've raised your hand. Please go ahead. You may unmute yourself. Crystal, you may unmute. I've just asked you to unmute there, or you may. Okay, you cannot unmute yourself. Oh, my apologies, Crystal. You are not seeing my slides properly. Okay, not to worry. I'm actually sharing the presentation, so you can actually follow along as I'm speaking, because it's more of a discussion. So these slides were more of a guide. So thank you very much for highlighting that to me. So I will be able to actually share these slides, and you can actually have them and go through them. So we can actually chat. My apologies. We are having some extremely heavy rains here, so that could possibly be affecting our connection. But I hope you can all hear me clearly. Daniel, Evelyn, welcome. I'm hoping you are hearing me loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. We can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. You are welcome. So my apologies again for the blurred slides. I'm sure this really has to do with, it's actually raining cats and dogs here in Zimbabwe at the moment. So that is probably what could be causing our unstable network there. But if you can hear me, that's okay. I'm happy to continue to just expand on what I'm speaking about. So moving forward, we had spoken about 3 myths to say improving IT for the benefit of Daniel and Evelyn, who joined us in the middle, that improving IT leads to digital transformation is not true, because true digital transformation is about upgrading your strategy, the way you think strategically, and bearing that you've got to make some uncomfortable decisions that will then lead your company to start producing new products and services which are driven by technology. That is the definition of digital transformation. So simply plugging in a new software, that's not digital transformation. Digital transformation is the strategy that you use to do that. Secondly, merely just digitizing the way you do business, which is your operations. That again has nothing to do with the strategy. Operational effectiveness, we need it, yes, thumbs up, but we also need to understand that for it to be transformational, there's got to be a strategy involved. We've got to sit down with our stakeholders, which are your clients, your customers, and also your internal stakeholders, which is your team. You cannot digitally transform without your team knowing what the direction of the company is. And again, it comes back to the leadership. The leadership must have a digital mindset in order to understand that they need to engage all these stakeholders. And then we spoke about the third myth, which is to say, as long as we are digitally innovating, it's better than us not doing any digital innovation. And I've said to you, that thinking is detrimental, because it can so happen that your company is headed in a completely different way. You don't exist to actually move with the times as far as that specific digital innovation is concerned. But because you feel that peer pressure to digitally innovate because something is trending on the market, a new technology is trending on the market, and you want to force that innovation into your organization, and yet your organization has no capacity to carry that innovation out. In fact, it's strangling you financially to carry out that innovation. Your company has no desire or passion to even pursue that innovation, and it is tying down the very people who must carry on the strategy and the vision of your organization, which are your team, which are your employees. And in the end, you see so many companies that digitally try to digitally transform and fail. This will have been the reason. The strategy will not have been clearly outlined. Now, I spoke earlier about understanding the different types of thinking. So there's two types of thinking. We've got what we like to call convergent thinking and divergent thinking. We can also transform that to mean convergent innovation. So when you are innovating convergently, I'm going to explain what that means. So you look at the customer's pain point. So remember, you are in business. Your job is to make sure that the customer is happy at all times. The client is happy at all times. So when you look at the customer's major pain point and then see how that particular pain point, that the complaints that the customer has, the issues that the customer is frantically trying to solve and failing, and see how that particular point feeds into your strategy of the organization. And then you also look at quickly how commercially viable it is for you as a business entity, because you must remember, you don't want to get into a point where you are chasing pavements and trying to climb mountains for the sake of trying to please customers, and then you end up having to liquidate as a business. You really want to make sure that this type of innovation that you want to go into, is it commercially viable? And then you quickly conduct, which is really a best business practice, conduct a quick MVP test, a minimum viable product test, a quick market test. How will this product penetrate the market? Do people really want this product? Will they enjoy using it? But guess what? As you do this, you want to make sure that you're not spending a lot of resources again during your testing phase, your minimum viable product phase. And you want to do it in the shortest amount of time possible with as little resources as possible. And then finally, you come up with a solid business case. And then it's at this point, remember when I spoke about digital innovation for the sake of just digitally innovating, when you go through this entire process, you will actually now know whether your organization has got the capacity and has got the desire to strategically carry out this new innovation that you are talking about. And then, of course, there is now what we call the divergent thinking. Now, divergent thinking is the one that we spoke about. You aim for the moon and you land on the stars and you say, you know what, it's still okay, I landed somewhere high up there. That's not the point. The point is, divergent thinking and divergent innovation is different. Now, with divergent innovation is you are merely just experimenting. You're not even looking at the customer's pain point. You just experiment, and there are no set parameters on what you want to achieve. And you just know that there's this new technology and you are just experimenting. It ties nowhere into your strategy. And what quickly happens with that type of thinking and that type of innovation is new ideas are coming left, right, and center. And you quickly soon realize that this is now very difficult. It's become a beast on its own that you need to handle. And at the same time, you have this company that you need to run on a day-to-day, and it is choking you because new ideas are coming all over the place. You quickly realize you don't have the capacity to run with this new innovation. But then again, you've gone and spoken to the whole world, you've showcased to your clients that we are going to be going in this direction. So now for you to backtrack becomes very difficult. But at the same time, this new innovation is choking you. You don't have the uptake that you were expecting from your clients and your customers because you didn't control the innovation process. So ideas are popping up from, from the floors, from the roof, coming in through the windows. They're just coming in from all over the show. And you're just not sure how you are going to yield the results that you are looking for. So that's the thing with the divergent process of innovating. The convergent one happens in a controlled environment. So you are going step by step. You look at what the customer needs. You look at your company's capacity. You look at your own strategy. Does it feed in? Can we test to the market? How much do we need for it to test to the market? And you take your time. With divergent thinking, it's the other way around. You quickly rush to the market and then you say, you know what, we're running an experiment. But you know what happens with these type of experiments? You cannot control the results. And when the results come back to bite you, you are now not in a position now to control how big this beast is going to be. So you have a company to run, your customers expecting the same level of service every single day. At the same time, this little beast that you've created is growing bigger by the day and it is choking your company. So you really, really need to be careful. And I thought I would just highlight that process because a lot of the institutions that we work with, they tend to say there's a new technology on the market. This is where we should be going. This is what we should be doing. And then only to discover much, much later that this innovation is very costly and our company does not have the resources for us to be able to run with it. So it's really, really, really important for us to bear that in mind, that those are the two. And as I've said, I will definitely be sharing the slides with you, so you don't have to worry much. We can just be chatting as we go. So now, which brings us to the next bit of our discussion that we want to have, and this is creating a digital transformation strategy. So we've spoken about what digital transformation is. We've spoken about what digital transformation is not. And now we are speaking about, okay, fair enough, Vicky. We've had a conversation about this. How do we then digitally transform? So if you are in an organization where you are tasked with coming up with strategy, this is where now your leadership gets called into question. You have to first understand before first port of call, when we are looking at a digital transformation strategy, is you start with a comprehensive current state of affairs assessment. Where are we as far as digital transformation is concerned? Where are we? And once you answer the where are we, then it's very easy for you to say, right, where do we need to go? So that's step number 2. Clearly define your future vision for your digital business. We've agreed digital transformation involves us being involved in digital processes. We are not disputing that. What we are saying is for it to be transformational, there has got to be a strategy. So now we sit down and say, clearly, what is the future vision of this organization? Once that happens, then you say, okay, where we are versus where we want to be leads us to point number 3. What are the gaps between those 2 points? So this is currently where we are. This is where we want to go. What do we need to do to get there? What are the gaps? And those gaps 9 times out of 10, go back to what I was speaking about, the digital innovation. Because you've done a proper current state of affairs, you are being honest to yourself, you're being honest to the team. Guys, this is where we are technologically. But you see, we have a grand vision for this company. We have a grand vision for this organization. We want to be at point X. But now you see, this is where we are lacking, which is the middle bit. Then you start to look at all the gaps. Guys, this is what we need to do in order to take us to the promised land, in order to get to point X. This is what needs to happen. And finally, once you've had that conversation, and you will remember now at this point, you are engaging people. Those are your stakeholders, both internal and external. You are now looking at the process, which now stems from basically the gaps, because the gaps will inform the process. So now the roadmap comes from, we need the people, we need the process, we need the relevant technological innovation, and then we need the content. Because now when you come up with the technological innovation, it's not going to miraculously happen. You've got to figure out to say, where do I get the content? Where will it come from? Do I hire an IT consultant? Is my chief information officer capable enough? Is my chief technology officer capable enough? Is my chief data strategist within the organization capable enough? What reference point do I have of other companies just like mine who have successfully digitally transformed? What was their Bible when they did that? How successful was it? What challenges did they face? What challenges can we anticipate to face if we follow the same course of action? All these things, as you can see, stem from leadership. Your leadership must have some digital mindset of some sort in order for him or her to be able to lead this digital transformation process. And at the outset, when I introduced myself, I said I'm a digital transformation consultant. So it's at this point where a company is building a digital transformation roadmap, where people such as myself will come in. We will analyze your systems. We will analyze the resources in terms of even the team that you have. What capabilities do they have? Are they fully informed of what vision you as management, you as leadership of the organization want for this organization? Are they aligning themselves with that? How do we put a dollar value on this digital transformation exercise? Mind you, it's not a cheap exercise. It's like I said, it's not about we are going to merely just get some cloud software, whether we are going to go Amazon Web Services or we are going to use Google Cloud, and we're just going to say, right, we're deploying everything. It takes a certain amount of money, a budget that needs to be put aside. And on the same token, you don't shut down the company when you are doing a digital transformation exercise or a digital transformation overhaul. You literally have to give your customers, your clients, the same amount of operational effectiveness that you are giving them as you proceed with this journey behind the scenes. To put that into perspective, if you have a website and you are currently building the website from the back end, what you're going to do is you're not going to tear everything down and say, it's going to take me 3 weeks to finish building this new website. So during those 3 weeks, everyone must just go away. You can't, because from a business perspective, you need the money. So what you do is you, on the front end, the customers are still getting that same service from you that they are used to. But behind the scenes, you have engineers, you have back-end developers that are adding value to that website for the benefit of the client. I hope we understand each other on that one, because it's very critical for you to understand that when you're going into a digital transformation exercise, you don't throw out the current business, the current level of operational effectiveness that you have, and say, listen, clients, yes, for the next 3 weeks, you're going to get rubbish service from us as we digitally transform, but we assure you, after 3 weeks, when we come back, everything will be so brilliant, it will blow your mind away. You will lose the customer, you will lose the client. Because remember, the client always wants what they want, and they want it in real time. So you have to bear that in mind. So this digital transformation exercise that you're going to undertake, you've got to make sure that you put systems in place, and this involves your team, which is why I said at the outset, communicate with your team. Make sure they understand, make sure they know the vision that you have for the organization, so that they know that others will be working on the usual operational effectiveness of the company, keeping the company afloat, whilst others are now moving into this new strategy and overhauling and actually just renovating the way the company looks from a digital perspective. So it's really, really important. So people are important. The process has to be clearly defined. The content which you are going to use to come up with technology, which is the fourth point. So let's bear that in mind as we move along. So moving right along, how do we then create this digital transformation strategy? So I've spoken about it, obviously, in passing, but we'll look at it again. Step number one, your business analysis. So when a company starts the journey to digital transformation, we have emphasized this. The team has got to continue those digital operations as they were. So whether it is product delivery, whether you are processing orders, whether it is the transport logistics of how goods are moved from point A to point B, all of that is really important. And it is crucial at this point where you are doing your business analysis to make sure that the digital transformation in no way disrupts the current customer experience. So that's step number one. Step number two, how do we then, and before actually move to step number two, how then do we prepare for what we call seamless digital transformation? When we speak of something being seamless, we are saying we don't necessarily see the difference. We just see the change when it has happened. Okay. So at no point, we gave the example of a website. At no point do we need to see that the website is now down because these guys were busy digitally transforming. What we should see one day when we come to your website is a brand new thing. How it happened, when it happened, who did it, we may never know. But what we are seeing is something brand new. And that is how you effectively do it. And so what you need to do is you need to research on the matter that you are going into, this digital strategy that you are going into. You've got to understand what digital transformation means for your specific company. Okay, so you cannot take someone else's blueprint and then copy paste and put it in yours. It doesn't work that way. So you've got to specifically understand, and this is from a leadership perspective. So if you're a chief information officer, if you're the chief data officer, if you are the chief technology officer, if you are the CEO, this is your responsibility. You have got to outline this, whether you are reporting to your board of directors. You've got to clearly say to them, this is what digital transformation is going to be like for our company. And these are the resources that it will require from our team. Then you define the pain points of your customer. Remember, we spoke about the convergent innovation, which says we first look at what is the customer complaining about the most. You do a lot of monitoring and evaluation in your organizations. You do a lot of customer feedback surveys. What are they complaining about? What are your customers saying? The generality of it. What are they saying? So for instance, you basically need to outline the fields of services that are in the most need of transformation. So you're not just miraculously pulling a rabbit out of a hat and saying, abracadabra, this is a new technology, people must just follow it. No, you are merely looking at data-driven decision-making. So for instance, if you are constantly receiving complaints about your delivery speed is slow, then this is where you should start as far as your digital transformation planning is concerned. Customers are saying our speed when it comes to transport logistics is slow. Our speed when it comes to manufacturing of products is slow. How do we make this experience better? That's your first port of call. Then you prioritize, like I've said, the satisfaction of your current customers. So remember, when you are doing something transformational, ladies and gentlemen, we're not just speaking about transforming for your current group of people that you will have. You are transforming with a view to attract more people to your organization. So the fact that you are aiming at future progress does not distract you from the matters which are currently at hand, which is your customer satisfaction. Those customers you have on your books, those are the ones you keep happy as you bring in more customers with this amazing transformation of yours that you are going to go through. So that is how you prepare for a seamless digital transformation. Fair enough, we're ticking the boxes, Madam CEO or Mr. CEO. We have done that. We have done our business analysis. We are ready to make a seamless digital transformation. Number two, understand that transformation happens at team level and you need to prepare for that. So the common mistake again that we usually make before hiring people like Vicky Nxumalo is we quickly go on as the CEOs of the company to hire several trained specialists who have a brilliant track record on digitally transforming companies and entities, and seeing them as the only key stakeholders. Then we neglect the team members who are your internal stakeholders, who absolutely do not have a clue, who have no inkling of an idea of what is going on and what direction the organization is now going. So when I joined the company 5 years ago, this was the vision. 5 years later, you are now hiring all these trained specialists who are purportedly doing some digital transformation. But myself as the shop floor worker, myself as middle management, I have got no idea which direction this company is now going in. And then we expect things to move. They don't move. You have got to communicate with your team at that level so that they fully understand, even if you are going to hire these consultants, these highly skilled specialists to work with you, let your group, let your team know, have a clear vision, have a clear roadmap of where the direction of the organization is now going. And by the way, once you get buy-in from your internal stakeholders, these are your employees, these are your workers, these are your middle management, line managers. Once you get the buy-in from them, digitally transforming becomes a very, very easy process. You don't meet a lot of resistance, you don't meet a lot of reluctance, and things move seamlessly. So now, how do we then set up our team to be introduced to this digital transformation? So first and foremost, you cannot say to people, we are just digitally transforming. You've got to back it up. Back that up with statistics. Before you convince others that this is the new strategy, make sure that you yourself are going in the right direction as the CEO. So a good place to start is look at what the market trends are saying. So you call in your guys from the marketing department, talk to me, guys. What does what's the market analysis looking like? What are the competitor statistics looking like? Do we have any references of companies that have done something similar to us? Are we collecting our data efficiently and effectively? What decisions can we deduce from this data that we now have? So it's a lot of work behind the scenes. Once that has happened, you then encourage other colleagues, other stakeholders, other departments. You bring in sales, you bring in your production, you bring in HR, you bring in IT, you bring all of them in and ask for their unique perspective on what the pain points of the customers are. Remember, you are sitting in a well-conditioned office somewhere. You need to understand this. You are sitting in a well-conditioned office somewhere as the CEO, as the chief technical officer, as the chief data officer. And guess who is mixing and mingling with your clients? Your line managers, your middle managers, your shop floor workers. They are getting information firsthand from clients. Hear from them what the customer is saying. And you might be very surprised that you may hear some things that you may not have considered, which could actually, from a strategic standpoint, help you to come up with a proper digital transformation strategy. And by the way, when we come up with a strategy, let's not assume that we know what the client wants. Let's be 100% certain that we are backing up this strategy with a data-driven decision. Then what do? We say, okay, we have had a conversation, guys. You've told us what you've had to tell us. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input. Now, each and every one of us is going to be part of this digital transformation process. So that means assigning a role to each person to say, over and above, keeping the customers happy, the client customers that we have happy behind the scenes, please, can you be responsible for making sure you provide to this department the customer data so that we can make the right decision on the digital transformation strategy? Can you so-and-so now work on the logistics? Yes, you are working with logistics on the transport side, but can you also give us some feedback from what the clients are now saying on the logistics and feed it to that department? And then you, Madam Auditor, internal auditor in the organization, or Madam Accountant in the organization, can you keep track of the changes in financial position as we are doing this digital transformation? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we have a budget for the digital transformation. It is of no use for you to spend millions only to gain 1,000. So at this point, you are relying heavily on the figures because figures don't lie. So there's a person who knows that in as much as we are doing our regular buying and selling and manufacturing and producing and all those have a financial cost, Where are we when it comes to the digital transformation budget? Are we still on target? And then over and above all that, whilst all this is happening, most important part, keep track of your team's opinion throughout the entire transformation. They are giving you feedback at every stage, at every turn. Whatever role you have assigned them within the digital transformation process, ensure that you are meeting at least once every 2 weeks or once a month, call a full staff meeting and have a conversation with your team about how the transformation is progressing. They will tell you, I think the way we entered this, we shouldn't have done this way. Because the client feedback that we are now getting is this. Perhaps maybe we may change this way, we may change that way. So you are keeping track, you are documenting your process, right? So that in the event that something should go wrong with your digital transformation process, somewhere along the line, you can quickly rectify at which point things started to go wrong. So you may start off really well, and then somewhere along the line, things don't go according to plan, and you are actually able to pinpoint at what point of the transformation process things started to go haywire and quickly rectify that without really damaging a lot in terms of your reputation, in terms of your financial position as a company, and also in terms of the confidence that your customers and your clients and your other stakeholders have of you. So once all this is done, you standardize that transformation. So we've been assigning people different roles. They've been giving us different feedback. Lovely. Now we need to have a proper course of action. And we do this in 3 main parts. You start to plan tangible changes. So now we are starting to do little things that our customers are going to notice, and even our competitors are going to notice, to say, hey, this organization, do you realize they're now doing things this way? Things have changed. So now those are the changes now as you are slowly penetrating the market. But you see, if you kill a giant elephant and say, I'm going to sit and eat it in one day, I don't think that's being strategic. There's a way of eating an elephant, ladies and gentlemen. You can kill it and you can successfully eat it, but it will not happen in a day. So it means you draw up the overall system of what a complete transformation looks like, and then you break it up into smaller subsystems. And then you dedicate those subsystems to address those customer pain points and those customer opinions that you've been receiving from your shop floor workers, your line managers, your middle management, your external stakeholders, and you start apportioning them accordingly. Now, do you see that if we do it that way, we can consume this elephant in a short amount of time? Because now you are doing things in a logical manner, in a sequential manner, in a manner that is orderly, in an orderly fashion, and chances for making errors when things are done this way are very slim. So again, if anybody has done project management, they will understand project management and project planning. You'll understand the stages of a Gantt chart, right? The Gantt chart basically walks you through the different elements, the different stages of a project, and where you need to be at a certain stage of the project, together with the linked activities that need to be happening at that particular juncture. So this is something similar in your digital transformation strategy. So how then do we standardize the transformation? How do we do it? So the first part, when we are going to discuss 2 of these, define your goals. So what are my goals within this digital transformation strategy? We've agreed for a digital transformation to be called a digital transformation, you have got to have some sort of technology involved in there somewhere. So from a technological perspective, what kind of online instruments am I going to develop or implement to ensure that this digital transformation process takes place? So is it a new website? Am I creating a mobile app? Am I going to have a chatbot that is going to be able to just entertain our visitors as we are working during the day? Because there are some generic questions, right? Which a chatbot is able to answer and keep the customer happy, because they walk away feeling satisfied that they have contacted the company and they've received an answer. So it's not always that you have to wait to pick up the phone and say, Vicky's company, hello, because sometimes you get 50 calls in a day and you cannot attend all 50 calls. So you've got to start to think of a technological way to make sure that if you receive 50 calls in a day in your company, you attend to all 50 potential clients. That is the law of business. Secondly, financially. So now that we have digitally transformed, the accountants and your auditors will ask you this: how much return do you expect as a result of this digital transformation? How many deals do you expect to close because of this digital transformation? Again, goes back to your leadership. Your CEO must have these answers on hand. And then we start to say, okay, how then do we follow through on all these tasks that we've assigned different departments in the digital transformation process? So now you are discussing your metrics, right? So I need to define the weekly amount of work that each team member is going to put in towards this digital transformation. We need to know. It comes down to numbers on the job card, right? We need to know how much work or how much extra time, how much overtime, if ever there is any, that our team on the ground needs to put into. Then now, how quickly can we find out if our digital transformation strategy is indeed working? We haven't fully rolled out at this point, ladies and gentlemen. We are still penetrating the market. So you want to make sure that you are analyzing at each stage. So now we are leveraging off analytics tools, right? So guys in the IT department, through your chief technology officer or your chief information officer, can we have the Google Analytics? What do they say? What is our financial growth? What is happening as a result of us trying to transform? What do the figures say? What does the data say, right? And then once all of this is done, obviously, you want to make sure that you are keeping some sort of reference collection as you are going. So you are analyzing the strategies of what you have been doing vis-a-vis what your competitors out there are doing and other successful ones. And you say, you know what, there is no need for me to reinvent the wheel. This does not need to be a novel idea. Some of these things do not need to be novel. You can literally take a very good strategy, tweak it to suit your organization, and run with it. And this will shave off a lot of time when it comes to the digital transformation process. So now that you've done that, you are now saying, excellent, I think we are on the right path. Let's continue to digitally transform. By 2022, guys, the first quarter, we expect that digital transformation process should be complete. Can we make sure that we continue to check in with each other every month end at our staff meeting so that we continue to see how the process is going? So it's a process. It is not an overnight thing. It is something that happens gradually. You will make mistakes along the way, but you will also get the opportunity to A, learn from them, and B, rectify them and move forward. So that's the important thing about digital transformation. And so once that then happens, where everyone is now in this mode of we are digitally transforming, we now need to understand what are the actual strategy drivers for this digital transformation. And there are 4 pillars. I call them the 4 driving pillars. Number 1, your digital data. Collecting the information about your market and your customers allows you to assess risk. Risk is important because if you do not assess risk and you do not preempt that you might get into risk, you will liquidate and close. And once you assess risk, you then make data-driven decisions. You are able to say, according to the data, the strategy, ladies and gentlemen, that we have employed here is not working. Let's re-strategize. And so as you and your team and your relevant directors, you sit and you regroup and you re-strategize based on the customer pain point. You are doing what we call convergent thinking, convergent innovation. This is what we are doing at this point. And then you start to then say, second pillar, automation. So because you're digitally transforming, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, this is about the bottom line. This is about how much money we make. This is about the profit margin. So let's be honest, we're expecting more people to come into the organization. So you expect more people to come into the organization to do business with you and use the same team. I don't think it works. You've got to find a way now to say, right, there are certain tasks, ladies and gentlemen, that we have within the organization, which we can just automate. There's no need for you to be answering a phone 24/7. You can just have a chat bot that will basically serve in our call center and respond to some of the needs of our customers. We don't necessarily need to have people sitting there all day answering phones. So you can now start to implement technologies such as AI, artificial intelligence, to your business operation. This basically redirects your team now to handle more important tasks. While the algorithms will now handle this mundane work, which we know is repetitive and can be automated. Then the third one, connected devices. This is pillar number 3. You're driving pillar now for your strategy. Number 3, connected devices. So now you start to use things like IoT, Internet of Things, right? United networks. These will basically synchronize your supply chain. It will connect your team members at all time, and it will actually provide real-time reports. So you're not sitting there waiting for the next staff meeting to be given an update on what is going on. You already have got this at the click of a button. You have set up those connected devices, that system, and you are using the relevant technology and the relevant innovation. Remember at the outset when I spoke about the myths and I said, shooting for the moon and landing on the stars because you've just decided to say, look, as long as we are digitally innovating is better than us not doing anything. It doesn't make sense because now you are looking at your company and saying, for me, for my company, for this strategy to work, this is how I need to synchronize things with my team. And then, of course, most important bit, we want new customer access. That's your strategy driver. Any board of directors, any accounting department in any organization, large or small, will say to you, we have put money into this transformation process. Show us where we are going to recoup that money. And best believe you, Madam CEO or Mr. CEO, you better have those answers ready. And the customers, again, will require transparency. They will want you to say, right, fair enough with your new digital transformation, lovely, you've got all these fancy technologies that you're employing here. Can we have a transparent view of the company's processes? We want to know, if I'm investing in this company, what does that look like? Who do I communicate with? How does that look like? What sort of answers can I expect? All those things, you've got to put all those metrics into place. You've got to put all those concepts into place before you successfully say, look, we are moving with a very vibrant and workable, viable digital transformation policy or strategy. Now, that is that, ladies and gentlemen, on digital transformation. I hope we have understood each other. And this was me giving you a high level because really, when we go into digital transformation, there's a lot that goes into it. We actually now start to discuss the product life cycle and what part it plays, you know, from the product life cycle when you first start out and that graph goes up, you know, there's the growth phase and you think, oh, things are looking lovely, you know, and then you get to the maturity stage where it's like, it feels like it's stagnant and you're not really sure what's going on. And now the competition is also now coming in full force, and you have only your regular customers that are coming in to buy and no new customers. And then the next thing, you have the decline. So we want to talk about how that looks like in relation to digital transformation. And then we'll also talk about things like the system development life cycle, right? So if you are developing a specific system, which is something you find you will do when you are going through a digital transformation, is you actually really need to understand your own systems. And usually you would work entirely with the business analyst of the organization, because that's the person that must put a dollar value on all the systems that you have and how much money you are either making or losing as a result of those systems. And if you put a digital transformation strategy into place, which is now another layer on top of your system development life cycle, then you need to fully understand to say, is this viable for us at this time? Can we afford it? Will it bring much benefit? Will it bring much revenue? And is it really relevant? So Now, when we look at the future of digital transformation, it sounds nice for us to speak about this, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been having this discussion. Very nice for us to speak about it and look at it from a position of saying, this sounds like something that each company needs to do. And yes, do I feel that companies the world over need to digitally transform if they haven't already? Yes, I do. Do I feel that companies in Africa, organizations in Africa need to digitally transform? Yes, I do. But it's not without its cons. It's not without its challenges. And just looking at this study here from Dell Technologies from 2020, they were discussing the top barriers to becoming a successful digital business by 2030. 93%, a resounding 93% said that there are barriers to their organizations becoming successfully a digital business in 2030 and beyond. And a further 61% of those said, the truth is we lack a digital vision and strategy. So you will remember that throughout this entire presentation, the one thing that I have been speaking about is strategy, strategy, strategy. So I'm glad now finally we understand that when we speak about digital transformation, throw the word digital away for a minute and think about transformation. It has to come from your leadership. Your leadership has got to figure out what the strategy is for that and how we are going to achieve it. Another 61% of that 93% said, truth is, we feel that the current workforce that we have is not ready. Meaning, we have not invested in the digital literacy, in the digital upskilling of our current workforce. How do we remedy that? Let's have staff development for our teams. Let's have refresher courses. Let's have different members from different departments taking up online courses at the company's expense. Because remember, digital transformation is a bit of an expensive exercise. So if you have a team that is ready, a team that is fully equipped, that cost goes down significantly. A further 51% said, no, we just have technology constraints. We are lost. We just have no idea in terms of technology. What needs to happen? We are just floating in the sky. So again, technology plays a pivotal role when we are speaking about digital transformation. It's so important to understand how technology plugs in to your specific space. Remember, I said you can't just copy paste. Yes, you can use the references of other successful organizations such as yourself that have gone down the road of digital transformation, but you cannot copy and paste their business transformation, their digital transformation strategy, and make it work in your own organization, because it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. 37% then said, time and money. One, we just don't have the time. We're working around the clock. We don't have enough people in our workforce to carry out a digital transformation exercise. And number two, even if we did, we don't have the money. We're not making enough. We're barely breaking even every month. So we can't. So 37% said, this is what will hinder us. And then 20% said, hey, the law and the regulations surrounding digital transformation, we are not compliant. We first need to be compliant before we can even begin to speak about it. And when I speak about the law and regulations, and I think I'll speak about it on a later slide as we are almost winding up, you need to familiarize yourself with data privacy and data protection. So depending on which country you are in, we have different data protection acts and data privacy acts. And those basically say, if you are going to be dealing with clients, you are dealing with customers, large scale, at what point do you share customer information and why and to whom? So other companies would then say, we do not have the proper regulatory policies in our company. We have not yet fully complied with the law, whichever body that is that requires you in your specific country to submit issues to do with the law, as far as data is concerned and as far as the use of technology is concerned. Because you must understand, when things happen in the cyber area, you must understand that it is still a crime. There are still some crimes which can be committed in the cyber realm, which are still quite punishable. They are punishable offenses. You can be prosecuted for that. And you need to fully understand this nature of digital transformation that you're going into. Have you put stopgap measures that save you from the law, that basically save as a buffer to you as a company? And then also, your client needs to know if I'm doing business with you. I don't want to find my personal details out there for the world to see. So it has to be an element of trust. And so you need to work on that. So probably here, your compliance officer or your legal officer within the organization would probably advise on that. And then, of course, a meager 7% then said, we are not even sure whether we will have the barriers or we won't have them. We don't know. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up this discussion, and thank you so much for your attention, is when we speak about digital transformation, first port of call, your CEO, the guy that sits in that well-conditioned, air-conditioned office, needs to work from the top to the bottom. That person needs to understand that the buck stops with him or her. So that person has the clear vision of the company's development, and that person knows how to share the objectives with the team in a manner that even the person that makes the tea in your organization understands the new vision that the organization is going to be taking. That is the CEO's job. Digital education and implementation of software in daily processes will always remain crucial. It's a part of digital transformation. But like I said, plugging in some new software and saying that is digital transformation is not true, because digital transformation is about strategy. So how do you now strategize to integrate technology into communication, technology into people doing different tasks in the organization, technology into client support? We spoke about intelligent chatbots. We spoke about artificial intelligence within your organization. You got to understand that. Then, of course, the data protection compliance, I've just spoken about it now. Familiarize yourself as the CEO with the privacy regulations surrounding the data before you come up with this amazing technological strategy and method, which will land you in $1 billion lawsuit. And then, of course, digital transformation has got to be scalable. So more often than not, you have to understand what we call return on investment. If the directors of the institution, of the organization, of the company put in money, it's not a charity. We are expecting some return on that investment. So it is your job to show me how this new digital transformation strategy of yours is going to have a growth potential. I need you to demonstrate to me beyond reasonable doubt what the next move will be before you fully deploy this digital transformation strategy. We don't want to be losing money because we failed to digitally transform. So the future of the digital transformation. Thank you very much, Evelyn. Yes, the PowerPoint presentation is not clear. It's actually very clear on my end, but we are experiencing some very heavy rains here in Zimbabwe. Actually, it's a thunderstorm out here. So I've literally, as you'll see, I'm using my mic and my earphones so that you actually cannot hear the loud noise out there. So when I share the presentation, it will be very, very clear. You'll be able to see everything clearly. So my apologies that you're not able to see that, but not to worry. I think we've had a very interesting conversation. So thank you very much, Evelyn, for the feedback. Much appreciated. So when we speak about the future of digital transformation, it's very essential to ask 3 fundamental questions. Number 1, why in the first place do we need to transform? If you do not have the answers to this, ladies and gentlemen, please don't bother. You are throwing money down the drain. And once you have answered why you need to transform, excuse me, you want to now know what you need to transform. Remember, not everything requires an overhaul. So what exactly do we need to transform? And once we've answered that, okay, how then do we transform? And why those three questions are absolutely fundamental is because oftentimes, more often than not, there is a lack of a clear purpose. Remember, it goes back to that lack of digital vision and digital strategy that we spoke about. A good 61% said this is going to be a barrier to us making it in 2030 as far as digital transformation is concerned. So you have to understand that people, those are your internal, external stakeholders, processes within your organization, or whatever they may be, and purpose are key only if they are connected. So people, processes, purpose, and to a certain degree, content, because you must understand the context and the context in which you're operating with are what make for a fertile digital transformation strategy that will be successful in any organization. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I really enjoyed being with you today and just having this conversation. So now at this point, I'm actually just going to entertain questions. I'm just going to stop the share here. Entertain questions, comments, feedback, and we can just have a general chat. I can also get to know you guys as well. Yeah, thank you very much for the lovely feedback, ladies. Joy, Christelle, Evelyn, thank you very much. Much appreciated. So, Joy, please go ahead. You may unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, thank you so much for the content. And also, one of the things that I'm thinking about, because I've been doing some work helping some organizations to digitally transform. And one of the things that I've also realized is that, of course, the senior executives have no clue, even they want to. They have the appetite to get their processes automated, and I think I love the passion with which you said everything with, which is so true because I've experienced it. I've been using some models, but I just want to ask, what would be a practical onboarding situation? You're working as a consultant to come into an organization to help them to at least kickstart the process, put down the strategy, put down their budget, whatever policies they have to support the entire transformation. But what would be a typical onboarding session for you? That's my question.
Awesome. Thank you for asking that. So typically what happens is, obviously when you get called into a company, you're called in most likely by the CEO or the director of the company, because it's at that point that they've realized that they need an independent consultant to come in. So typically, the first port of call is you then work with your business analyst. You have to come up with a business analysis. That's the first port of call, because you need to know as a digital transformation consultant what you are working with, right? And so that's the person that will give you an overview of what the business looks like in terms of systems, in terms of finances, in terms of the areas, the gaps that exist that are really making it a compelling case for that specific organization to transform. So as an entry level, you would then want to then sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, look, these are the areas that you would like to transform, and these are the reasons. This is where you wish to take the organization. But before we even start to look at where the organization is headed, let's first deal with the issues in-house. So it's always having a conversation with the business analyst of the organization, because that's the person that has the access to what the systems look like, the processes look like, the finances look like. And then from there, you are then able to quickly identify as a digital transformation consultant the gaps that exist. So in as much as the CEO will give you a compelling case to say, Joy, I want to transform. We have to digitally transform. We just have to. Okay? Because CEOs will tell you this, and they will tell you they are on a deadline for this thing to happen. But then you've got to sit back and say, no, hold up. Let's roll it back a bit and go to the grassroots and figure out where are the issues possibly that need to be polished up and sorted out. And then we can, successfully progress from there. And once the system then starts to progress, your conversations with them now start to progress. They progress in a manner which is basically systematic, because now you have a full understanding of where they lie as an organization and how much it will take to get them there. So sometimes digitally transforming may be premature for some organizations. So they may say they want to digitally transform, but they are not yet ready. There are several issues, several processes, several systems, some even to do with policies that need to be ironed out and sorted out first before they can embark on a digital transformation journey. So that's your job as a digital transformation consultant, to then say, look, this is the starting point. And then, of course, you plan out the scope of the project, right? So you're basically a project manager in essence. You now plan out the scope of the project to say, we're breaking up this entire section to then say, this is how we are going to work in these subsystems, all plugging into this big digital transformation process. But there are several little tasks and activities that need to be happening, and others will be happening most likely concurrently during the process, which will then lead to the final transformation. Back to you, Joy.
Yeah, right. Thanks so much for that. That was insightful, especially when you said, of course, you have to understand even how their revenues are working and flowing, because at the end of the day, it's the bottom line. Right. The other question that I also want to raise is that I've encountered a couple of startups. So startups don't want to, a lot of the startups coming up today, they don't want to have the traditional way of doing things before, when they become a big organization, they can afford to implement certain platforms and stuff like that. So usually they do not have the policies in place. They do not have, let's say, a robust team to handle, let's say, specific softwares. They probably don't have someone managing their CRM, stuff like that. So typically when you're dealing with a startup scenario, what would be your approach to actually dealing with the startup scenario?
So dealing with the startup scenario, and you're right, the fundamentals of a startup is funds are limited. When they're starting up, literally every dollar, every cent is going into the startup. There's really basically nothing left. But one thing you'll understand about startups is they tend to be very technological. So on the technological aspect, they already know where they need to be. They just have the problem of the funding. So in terms of setting up a system, then we are then saying to them, fair enough, you are technologically minded, but when it comes to the business element and the business side of things, are you well aware of your financial policies, how you are basically handling your finances as a startup? Because that plugs into the entire digital transformation strategy, which is why I said to you earlier that sometimes we may feel we want to digitally transform, but we're not yet ready. It's premature. So now you go back and you look at all their policies. This is your job now as a digital transformation consultant, to look at all their policies. I'm talking the marketing policy, the production policy, the finance policy. You're going with the fine comb through everything and going through that and saying to them, only when you reach a certain level in terms of, optimum level, that we can say your business is viable. Because remember, not all startups are going to be viable. Some of them fail before they actually fully start. So we need to be very, very careful when dealing with startups, because 9 times out of 10, the idea, the concept, it's brilliant. The execution, however, leaves a lot to be desired. So I often say that when we are dealing with startups, it's so important for us to fully understand the policies that the startup has put in place. How robust are they? And in terms of their cash flow projections, what does that look like? How do they intend to pivot in cases of, let's say, for example, COVID-19? You know, what is their risk policy? What does that look like? All those things will then, because once you assess risk, Joy, it's so much easier for you to then make a recommendation. In fact, a meaningful recommendation really is the word I'm looking for, based on the information that you have. So it's a lot of digging deep that you are doing before you finally then say to this startup, I think it's now time for you to move on. Now then you have bigger startups. You have really big startups out there that literally are doing so well. The bottom line is great. They're making the money that they need to be making. They're loved by the clients in the market. It's going great. But there's potential for them to do better. That's where you come in as a digital transformation consultant. So you're coming in basically to say, you guys are doing great, but how do we make it better? How do we avoid you from becoming obsolete? Because that's another thing with startups, is they're constantly, they have to reinvent themselves basically to remain relevant. And so it's so important for you to understand that those fundamentals surrounding a startup before you even begin a digital transformation journey with them, because it is a risk. Remember, you as the digital transformation consultant, you're a magician of sorts. So when you come in, we're expecting you to perform magic. All right. So you're coming in as a consultant, you're the fundi in this space. Please do not lead us down the drain. We expect you to tell us the truth about whether we are ready for this transformation or not. If we are, what strategies do we have in place? How do we refine them? How do we make them work? How do we reinvent them if we need to? If we are not, it is your job as a digital transformation consultant to say, at this stage, preliminary investigations, preliminary results show that we are not yet at the stage where we should be talking transformation. We actually should be talking more operational effectiveness, because operational effectiveness will technically play an integral part, a pivotal part in the whole business and digital transformation element of the organization. So we've got to understand those. It's a very tricky dimension, a tricky waters to be in as a digital transformation consultant. So we want to take note of that. So thanks, Joy, for highlighting that. Any other questions?
Thank you too.
Thank you. Any other comments that we might want to share? Did we enjoy the session? Would you like something a bit more in depth? Because what I've given you here is basically high level. It's not really in depth of digital transformation, as I highlighted earlier. There's so many acronyms that we now use, like the Thrive acronym, and when exactly you employ that, and, looking at different case studies and, and things like that. So there's quite a lot of things. Digital transformation is pretty broad, but as an introductory sort of session, I thought we might enjoy this one. So I thought I would, prepare that information for you, and I definitely will be sharing the slides. They'll be very clear. You should be able to go through those, and that should be a basic introduction. So I didn't get to hear, I see Christelle there, you're from Beyond Treetops, Digital Solutions for Conservation. And that sounds really interesting, considering that we're coming from COP26. I would like to believe maybe that you work for an industry that has to do with the environment. Am I right in assuming that, Christelle? Yes. Okay. Awesome. So it's so nice to have you. And that also digital transformation. Oh, you've just set yourself up as a freelancer. Absolutely amazing. And it's so wonderful for you to work in a field where you feel passionate about. And I think that's really, really amazing. So Evelyn, I didn't get where you are coming from. Oh, so you work from the conservation and wildlife field. Amazing. Okay. So Evelyn, I didn't get where you are coming from. And Daniel, if you can hear me, you can use the chat box. It's fine if you don't want to unmute. Just for us to get to know each other, so that I can know the people that I had in the session as well. And please, let's feel free to, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. You just search for Victoria Ngumalo Girls in STEM Trust, you find me. Let me see if I can actually just share my LinkedIn profile, and we can connect. And I'm always happy to connect with people and to chat. And yeah, so really happy to have all of you here. So Evelyn, I don't know if you can hear me, and Daniel. Joy, I didn't quite get where you said you've done some digital transformation work.
Yes,
Where
I'm
are you
currently
based?
I'm
Where are you
based
coming
I'm
from?
based in Grenoble, France, but my company is
Ah,
in Ghana, Abe Innovation Studios. Yeah.
okay, all right. And what does your company do?
Yes, so it's we do sustainable development projects, mainly driving sustainability through digital innovation. But we do have an aspect of the business where we're doing technology and innovation consultancy, mainly for companies that are driving sustainable projects.